You don't get to choose to not pay a price. You only get to choose which price you pay.
It's not our job to figure out the how, right? It's our job to figure out the why. To take ownership or responsibility is to you to completely forfeit your right to blame.
Have you ever had a part of your story that didn't make sense at the time, but looking back, it was preparing you for your purpose?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and there's been, I think more times than not, and that still happens. There's stuff that I'm doing right now, or I'm, still building, and sometimes it doesn't feel like it fully makes sense. But I might butcher up how it's said, but I've always remembered too, and it's been something I've experienced. And Steve Jobs had a quote like, the dots will never make sense looking forward, but it's always at moments when you're able to stop, look back, that you see it. Wow, that's why I needed to do this, or I needed to go away and do this for a little while, or this is why I had that passion to start that thing, even though it didn't make sense. But
I heard that it's the irony of life is it makes sense in reverse, but not going forward.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. That's exactly. So many things are, again, and this is why I'm so, I guess just obsessed with the spirituality sense, and that there's a higher intelligence that is constantly working for us when even more so, I should say, there's even times where we don't even want that, but that's just how good that higher intelligence that God is to us, And then there's other times where we actually partner with that, and we actually allow ourselves to be submitted under something that's greater than us, a will, a cause, a love. And I think when we do that, the universe is constantly giving us opportunities of being able to build yourself up, whether it be in any area, socially, mentally, physically, financially. And so I would say, man, probably 8 out of 10 times in the past moving forward, when it was something big, it really was something that I didn't understand. I was 17. Here's a quick example. Around 16, 17, I was at a local church, small little church. And then by 17, they had me speaking as like the youth director at 17, right? And so I'm looking around, on Wednesdays, and I'm the one speaking, and I think I was even like leading worship at the time. So I'm like leading worship, and then I'm like going to speak, and like majority of these people are my age, and it didn't make sense to me. Right. But then you fast forward, I had no idea that I would be like a professional motivational speaker. I had no idea that the message or having a message and sharing it would be something that wasn't just for that season, but it was preparing me for something that now, 15 years later, I'm doing professionally. Like,
right.
And if the Lord would have told me you're going to be doing this one day professionally, I would have argued. I would have fought. I would have been like, no, I'm not. Public speaking is very difficult, and it's not something that I grew up or looked in the mirror one day and was like, you're going to be on stage just speaking. Yeah. It's actually been something I fought the entire time before an invitation to, go speak here and share the Allergic message led to this. And then fast forward, and that became a way. That's still a way that I take care of my family. And all these things, though, along that have been prepping and preparing me for speaking, sharing a message with the world, enlightening minds and hearts, right? Like elevating the thought process of somebody, which was something that I couldn't have thought it out, right?
Right. So when you were fighting it, because it had momentum and it was kind of like probably driving itself, right?
Right.
Like it was pushing, like God was pushing you towards that, and you were fighting it. So like, what was that internal dialogue like? Like, why did you feel like you didn't want to, or you feel like you didn't deserve to have a platform? I don't know, but like,
it's the common one, I feel like, for most people, which is that belief that who am I? Imposter syndrome, like who am I? Why would people listen to me? Or do I really have something to say? Like you start, no matter what you put it could just be applying to go work at McDonald's, right? Nothing wrong with that. But like, if that was your first job, not a high stressful, high paying job, but you could still get in your own way as a young person saying, well, what if they don't hire me? Or what if I ain't good enough to do this? I mean, so any position you step into, it's going to constantly get you to come back and actually recommit somewhere, right? And so for me, like, I had to recommit that this wasn't just about Matt Lee. Like when I spoke, a lot of the problem wasn't even that, I wasn't a good enough speaker. It was me. It was me liberating this idea that wasn't a part of who I am, and that I actually needed to let that belief go. And that because maybe that wasn't somebody that I identified as a part of me, or that I'm in my mind not good enough, that's actually, again, not true. That's not real.
Yeah.
And the evidence of life was like, bro, you're getting invitations to go speak. You're getting paychecks to go speak. You're getting people telling you that your message matters to them. But here you are in your head, you're not good enough. You're gonna find out you're a fraud.
Yeah.
Who are you to think people really are going to be changed by what you have? So for me, getting out of my way, my mind, and getting into the alignment of what is a higher truth, what is something that's actually speaking to why this has been happening. I can argue all day up here, but I can't argue the actual evidence of what's going on. And so anyways, that goes back to just the power of our brain. Like, you're always going to find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So it's very important on what are you looking for? Are you looking for the reasons why you're not good enough? Because you're going to find it. You're not good enough. Remember? Oh, look, that's evidence. Or you start tapping in and having the faith to say, no, I've been created to do something. I've been created to bless people. And then you start to look around and see the actual evidence of, look at that favor. Look at how that played out. Look at how much you've been a blessing to this person. And so it's a process, but it's that process to purpose, and it unfolds.
Well, and ultimately realizing like you do have something to offer the world, and you telling yourself you're not good enough and not acting on that is depriving the world of what you have to offer. And ultimately, for me, I feel like I realized I did have something to offer the world, and it may not be like have the biggest YouTube channel. It may not be
you're famous.
Yeah.
I know.
But me telling myself I wasn't good enough and me holding myself back was depriving the world of what I had to offer it.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And I think that's and I think that's kind of where that ties in too, because I feel like we're trained to look externally for purpose and not internally. Like,
right. How
do you serve the world versus what do you offer the world?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and it's going to be common. And that's why going a lot of the theme too of knowing purpose and following these things is, this idea of know thyself. Most people don't even, they can be grown ass adults and they still don't actually know what they want or what's actually terrifying them, or because it's scary for people to spend time with themselves. Like that's another 180 thought of this world versus how we were designed to be, and I think about our culture today, if you think back, thousands of years ago and how slow paced the world was a day, now, we have so much constant things going on. And just the phone alone, right? So it makes it hard to know you.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to be distracted on everything else that's going on. And it's a lot easier to look outward than it is to look inward, because that takes, again, intentionality, that takes honesty, that takes transparency with yourself, that takes surrendering. And so
do you feel like that it's the convenience of our necessities? Like, so when I say that, like, it's very convenient. Like, we can just go pour water right now. We can go take a shower. We can go across the street and go get food. Like, everything's so convenient that I feel like we almost got addicted to the convenience, that it's hard to, because obviously convenience is comfortable.
Right.
And I think being addicted to the convenience pushes us to to confront ourselves. You know what I'm trying to say?
Well, and it becomes it feels like an inconvenience to work on yourself, because it takes time and it takes, in a sense, a sacrifice. It's a good one. It's a beautiful one, but it requires you to one, cut out that time, and then two, to commit to being present in that time. And then three, like, you are also, anytime you like meditate, you pray, you talk to a mentor, you're still going in with this faith that this investment right now is going to be worth the exchange of what comes out on the other side. This prayer time right now, this meditational moment is going to make me better when I walk away from it.
Yeah.
But that's not a guarantee, right? So it almost feels like, oh, I'm good without it. And then that becomes a habit. I'm good without it. I'm good with it. Because it's much easier to throw on a podcast where somebody's teaching you versus maybe it's hopping your word and you learn for yourself with Holy Spirit. It's a lot easier to have somebody tell you what strategy and what to do, which is great. But sometimes we need there's not a strategy for what you're doing. You need to go figure it out, right? And so, again, the reason why I say that is because the more that you can learn thyself, the more you know about you, your passions, what ignites you, what frustrates you, what pisses you off about our world and what's going on in it. That becomes, again, a clarifying wave that allows you to partner with, and then allows you to continue to see, is this a distraction? Like whatever this pattern that is this a distraction, or is this actually something that I need to kind of surrender into and partner with more?
Yeah.
And it could look both ways, because maybe it is part of your passion and your purpose, but it's frustrating to you because you're not good at it, whatever this thing is. You don't understand why you're doing this, but you just have this. And the more that I feel like you stay committed to something like that, like it fits more in the lane of giving, serving, the will of a higher, God. It serves more in that category versus this is just something I want to do. It's just something that, and so I think the only way that we know that though more is by knowing, most people don't know what is like their spiritual vision. What is your gift to the world? And again, that's not a famous, I'm rich, everybody knows me. Like, your gift could be to one person in this world that doesn't sound like, some people might hear that and be like, I'm just going to help one person.
It's not big enough.
Right. That's not big enough. But then if you were to say, well, you're meant to be famous and you're meant to, people love the idea, but the process behind carrying that weight or carrying that pressure, and especially when you don't know yourself, it'll only break you.
Yes.
It'll only crumble you. But we sleep on the importance of a beautiful mom or a father that raised golden children to be the best that they could. We sleep on the fact of the power of a good teacher in a school and how much she transitioned somebody's way of thinking and life one day. That boss. We play roles, and every life is an experience and an invitation into either love or fear, depending on where that person stands and where they're rooted, right? And so we see the greed, we see the jealousy. We had that boss before that was, very controlling. But we also have this exchange and experience with humans that are loving, that are blessings, that are not aligned to their own ego, but something bigger. And anytime you see that was never on accident. Anytime you see people like that, right? And so it cost them something. They had to exchange. They had to be intentional. So that becomes why it's worth it. Why it's something that must be done on an individual level for each one of us. Because without it, you're just another average person. You will be. That's the default, right? Yeah. So if you don't get out of default into design, your life will always be a defaulted life. It'll all be off reaction. It'll all be off of, just continuing to go with everybody else is picking out your life and what you do and what your purpose is. But when you become somebody that I'm going to design this life that I've been given, starting with my beliefs, starting with my thought. And so that becomes the game changer.
Well, and I think that's one of my favorite talking points of yours is you were created to create.
Right.
Like, we are all created. We're creating even just I don't want to steal your thunder, but the home environment that you live in, you have a role in creating that. The relationships you have a role in. You are constantly creating.
Right.
Whether it doesn't have to be a podcast, it doesn't have to be it's literally. It could be. You could start off small with creating that.
Yeah.
When you begin to take accountability of what you're creating, now there's intention behind it. Now there's purpose behind it, and then. Because the pathway is never fully revealed to you. It starts by taking the first step, and then the next step, and I think that's like the hardest thing. One of the hardest things I had to get over was because everybody wants to see the end goal. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to see where you're going to end up, but that's not how it works.
Nope.
It's one step at a time through the forest of finding your way through, and it slowly gets revealed to you.
Right, and I think there's. Marianne Williamson, she talks about, in a sense from A Course in Miracles, but it's this idea that like the life you have today is the life you're ever going to have. Like, that's it. So if you're not happy today, right, if you're not finding ways to find the joy and the gift in this present moment, you may never, because life is what it's going to be, and it's that today.
Yeah.
And so it's not about materialistic things or, again, I have a hand that I can finally play when I'm 40 and then I'll be happy. It's how are you finding the joy, the purpose, the actual gift of today? Because when you can do that, every day starts to become more and more a part in alignment of joy, purpose, understanding. And it's not something that it's contingent on when this happens. It's like I've decided and now it's happening. It's going to continue to happen, right? And so, like you were saying earlier, we are programmed to believe that in this three-dimensional world that we live in, the things that we have attaches value to us versus what you have inside makes you the value of who you are. We don't understand that. So we chase, I want to wear this. I want to look like this. I need to have this. I want to go to these places, because if I'm not, I'm just another ordinary person. When in fact, we were designed to start with understanding from already your design, and what you cultivate and carry within you makes you an extraordinary person. Yeah. That's going back to that understanding of, I always talk about, instead of looking to get to something, what does it look like to work from that something, right? Like, so for rest is one of those. A lot of people think if I just keep busting my ass, if I just keep grinding, keep going, one day I'll rest. And that's something I fell for too for a while. But what happens when you stop working to get to rest and you start working from rest? That's a completely different way to approach, right?
Well, that's like the statistic that shows most people die within 5 years after retiring. I look at that and say, like, I wonder if that is because they spent their whole life in their careers, waking up every day, confronting the world, confronting the problems at work. And as soon as you retire, it's like, oh, now I can rest and travel the world. But then it's like, you're not contending with anything anymore.
Right.
You're not being challenged every day. And it's like, I wonder how much of that is attributed to suddenly you don't have any purpose anymore. Suddenly you don't have anything going on. So, like, what's the point? Like, we weren't created to sleep all day. We weren't created to take it easy. We were created to confront the world.
Right.
Confront the darkness of it, the pain of it, the struggle of it, and to keep going. Because ultimately, that's what tells the best story.
Yep.
There's not a good story that is mediocre and it's like, oh, everything just was paved beautifully in front of them and it worked out. No, it's always adversity.
Right.
And so again, I just wonder how much the lack of adversity contributes to that statistic of people passing away within 5 years after retiring,
Yeah, and I think, Miles Monroe talks about, even within work for us as human beings, like, to work is to become. And whatever that work is, it doesn't necessarily mean like you're pouring concrete, changing out roofs. Like, working in the office, working an issue out with a person, working on your yard, the skill level, the adapting, the problem solving, from mowing my grass to helping fix a corporate issue. Work helps us to become, because again, out of that struggle, out of that sweat, out of that exchange of putting your hands and your feet to something and tackling a problem, that exchange of doing that gives you something that allows you to become more clear, that helps you to become another person, that helps you to build another skill set that maybe you didn't have before. And then even in the smallest ways, you walk away with some more confidence out of that problem or that work day, that work season. And so the average person, we don't like to work, right? But work has been a part of helping us to find clarity, to find purpose. I mean, we were created to create. And when we're not taking the position as creator in life, you're still creating, but you're not doing it with intentional, on purpose, for purpose, with purpose. So you're creating unintentional things that typically, when that's the way that they are created unintentionally, we see that as chaos. We see that as problems in our world, right? It wasn't something with a greater purpose behind it. It wasn't something that with purpose, for purpose, on purpose, it got created. So now it's a problem. It was who created this problem? Who created this panic? And so each one of us as individuals gets the ability, because that's who we were created to be, to choose to be a creator in life, right? With intentional purpose, plan, and positioning. And as we do that, brother, the universe starts to partner with that, because we don't see ourselves as I'm a lacking being. I'm only an ordinary, just human. I'm average, because the world will give back. The universe gives back to you what you believe you are. Mm-hmm. So I want abundance. But at the core, I feel like I lack. I feel like, who am I to ever be rich or wealthy? Like who? So I can proclaim it and I can affirmation it all day. But if I actually have a belief system, the world will always give you back.
Yeah.
Which you're actually vibrating and reflecting out, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard to know. Unless you spend time with yourself to see why are you scared?
Yeah.
Why are you hurt? Why are you sometimes terrified? What is this? It's a lot easier to numb that. It's a lot easier to distract yourself from that than to sit with it and to actually make a decision with it. And so, more and more, I think that's what it's just the invitation into purpose and the greatness that you were meant to bring to this world, whatever it looks like. And so it's going to take work, but it's not, I don't know. I think we get so scared on what the work could be, right? We're afraid of the work. We're afraid that, what if I do all this work and nothing? And that's rooted in fear. But love knows that any work that I put, it's an investment for me, for others, right?
So I'm going to kind of reach for a little bit and try to connect these two thoughts. But there's a book by Rick Rubin called The Creative Act, A Way of Being. And he talks about how when we have ideas, so he calls it antenna. Like every human has these antenna that is connected to the universe. And when you have an idea of something, so like the podcast for me, like when I had this idea, that was the universe telling me that the world was ready for this idea to come to fruition. But if I don't act on it, it's just going to pass on to somebody else. And because it's time for that idea to arise.
Right.
And so I feel like if you're hurt by something, or you talked about it earlier, like there's something that you see in the world that just aggravates you to your core, that could be a sign to what you're supposed to offer the world. You're supposed to offer that solution.
Right.
So how do you begin to look at these frustrations or distractions, and how do you determine the difference between, like, is it just something that ticked you off, or is it actually part of something of your purpose?
Yeah, I mean, the only way that I think that's truly possible is it goes back to like the relationship with the divine. I mean, a lot of times I feel like the things that bug me the most or irritate me are things that are actually, it's actually breaking a law or breaking a command of the higher love that we've been invited into. And so when we look at like what love is, for me, what love is, kindness, all these things, and how much that actually changes our world, and that it's actually an option, it's available, and it's aligned to something that's bigger than myself. So when I see some lack of that, or somebody breaking my belief of like the golden rule, kindness, treating others with, respect, this and that, then it allows me to see again and get more clear on one, which is the most important. How do I decide to show up? How am I going to show up? Right. Because a lot of times if I've seen, maybe it's a group of people or an individual person, and maybe they're just like, I don't know, disrespectful, violent, a lot of things that aggravate me the most is, men mistreating women in a violent way. Maybe it's a verbal way, or especially men mistreating kids, sexually, taking their innocence, beating them. So if I see these things, it might actually cause me to get violent. I'm okay with that. But so much of that is me realizing that, I'm going to just add this and you can cut this but there's certain things that would bug me to the point of I would probably murder this person if I ever witnessed somebody, I walked in and somehow witnessed somebody getting raped, somebody getting violated. That's enough for me to right? But I'm okay with that in a sense that I realize that doesn't just come from the standard of Matt Lee. That comes from something I've surrendered into, I've bought into, I believe in, and I'm going to carry where I go. And I'm also going to illuminate the light in these dark places. So when it bugs me, it's things that I've seen in the world, I have to go back and ask why. And then it's okay, well, it's because you don't stand for that. That's not your alignment. And so again, out of that, I think for me, it's another way that I kind of stay free in this is scripture talks about, we're not at war with other humans. This is, my paraphrase of it. You're not at war with your brother and sister. It's not this face and body. You're looking at I'm at war with you. There's a whole spiritual world of thoughts and ideas and things going on that's what we're at war with. Right. There's a vibration, these things that you're talking about, an antenna of creation and certain things that we can partner with. And so I see things as spirits and energies that sometimes, depending on where we're at here, you're aligned into fear and scarcity and take what you can, get where you can, or you're aligned into love, forgiveness, release, blessing. Let's champion, let's help, let's hope. But yeah, I would say, just knowing who I am again, knowing myself, continuing to align in something bigger, higher into God. And then that helps me to identify if something's just pissing me off because of the ego of Matt Lee, maybe somebody offended me. And I've realized that often it's not. If I'm getting mad or upset on somebody else's behalf, somebody else's behalf, then I know for me that's me wanting to step in as protector. That's me wanting to step in as provider. Yeah. That's me wanting to step in as, freedom, whatever it is. And so, but I think that's definitely a part. Jesus comes in and he sees that the temple is getting used for gambling and basically their own ego.
Yeah.
And so Jesus didn't come in because Jesus had an ego that said, you're not going to do this in my house. Now, Jesus came in and he said, you're not going to, you've turned this house of the Lord into this? Mm-hmm. That's not who I am. That's not how this is going to, exist right here. I'm here to change it up.
Yeah. And
so I feel that out of that example, there's going to be certain things that you want to come into the situation and maybe you have the right to go in and flip the table because this is unjust. This is not of God.
Yeah.
And so, anger, frustration, I think these are all parts that help us to show up and serve when innocence is getting taken, when people are getting belittled or mistreated. You know, it's like,
well, and ultimately it's because how you're aligned with the divine, ultimately it's out of love. So like when you're using the examples that you gave, there's no love there. There's no protecting. It's just a complete absence of love. And that's the void you see that you want to fix or reshape or change.
right.
And I think that's because that's ultimately aligned. Do you think it's safe to say that because you're oriented towards love, that's why you feel so passionate about when you see those situations that you reference, like that's why you feel so?
Yeah, I think, I would definitely say that is very much like a correlation between it, because what you identify as is what you'll start to expect and stand for in life, right?
Exactly.
So if I identify as a loving person or a carrier of love, you know, let's just say another way of saying that, like if I am a carrier of the light, then it makes it that much easier to see where darkness is at. It makes it that much easier to know that when I show up in these dark places, I'm coming with a purpose and an intention to light it up, right? And so again, I'll keep going back to that. But if the more you know you, the more you can grow you, right?
Yes.
And so even with what are the things that I actually stand for? This thing of love. I mean, there's really only two options in our world. It's love or fear. Everything's either an extension of love, right, or a projection of fear.
Yep.
Marianne Williamson talks about this, and I believe that because thoughts, emotions, actions, the reason why we do or don't do something every single moment of every single day is we're either in one of two channels. We're on the love channel or we're on the fear channel, right? And we're constantly there. So as you stay tuned into love and you stay tuned into this is who I am, right? Anything that is less than that thing that you're standing for, you can recognize it. And you can also start to see it as I play a role. I don't even know how, right? Like you in social media, it just works itself out to where you are the solution at the table and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
But you aligning into, you know, when we talked about that story about you with social media management, like you knew the experience that you had, you knew the value of like the fundamentals, but you weren't convinced until you saw how much of a need you were or a solution to others, exactly. Right, in that moment. And I feel like sometimes like that's how we are. I mean, as caregivers, as teachers of Christ and love to the world, like the most important part is the being and doing of you, but somehow the being and doing of you and actually continuing to stay committed to that, it's always like the universe and God, that antenna is going to continue to put out. He's ready for more.
Right.
He's been tested up to this point, you know, and that's why, like, I think you talked about earlier, we love the idea of like seeing the end. And honestly, we get to create the end in mind here.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to believe and trust and have the faith, right? But as we create that every single day, if we partner with our imagination and the vision of, I don't even know what tomorrow is going to look like. I don't know what 5 years from now is actually going to look like. But when I partner my will and my purpose of love and all these things to who do I choose to be, right? Again, creator, who am I deciding I want to be and what would that look like? And then carrying that way of being in it, dude, it starts to actually open up and create what David Bear talks about, you know, those coincidences and the synchronicities of, you know, you don't even know how that happened. You don't even know how that thing got offered. You don't even know how, you know, this thing popped up, but it did because that was the way of the universe working it out and bringing you when you were ready and you didn't even know, right? Because there's sometimes you're going to get opportunities or you're done on social media, but the universe and the world's like, you're not. You're just getting started.
Yep.
So the more you know yourself, the more you can grow yourself. And I think that's where we have to start. I mean, we really do. So
something I just want to mention, just because you talked about the imagination you have to cast that vision, do you think a lot of people have a hard time with it because they forgot how to tap into their imagination?
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like imagination, like when you think imagination, you think of like a kid, you know, playing games, and he's like, "Oh, I'm a construction worker today," and it's like that. Do you think it almost feels? Some people feel like that's a childish thing, and like so they're like, "Oh no, that's not real.
Right.
This is what's real. This job is what's real. This, you know what I mean?"
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and again, the world's thinking and way of thought is 180 compared to what is true and actually how we were created to. And so imagination, I mean, it's in everything that we're talking about, it's just like a physical body and building muscle, you know, that is a very intentional thing. You don't ever see a fit guy or girl and wonder, how did they accidentally do that? You would never cross your mind that they accidentally got swole. Like it was very intentional. It was very on purpose. And so to see a body built or in some type of shape, you know, a healthy shape, then it gives you the evidence and tells you that was done on purpose, right? And so we have the same opportunity to build our mental musculature, and it comes through rep, and it comes through constant practice and awareness of building that, just like the constant awareness and building of a muscle actually expands and it breaks it down first, right? And then it builds it and makes it stronger. And our imagination and building that like musculature of mentally, it comes through rep, you know, because the reality is we lose our awareness and touch with our imagination, but we're still constantly imagining.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's easier to imagine fear. Well, what if this doesn't happen? Or what if I go in and they say that, or you're still imagining.
Yeah.
Because that's not actually real. Or you're imagining that, what if I end up broke in a year? You're still imagining, but it's a little bit harder to imagine on purpose with intention for something good, because ego says, who are you to imagine good for you, right?
Yeah.
When all you've gotten was bad, or that's just how the world is. It's a negative place. It's a hard place. And so creating a relationship with your imagination that aligns into right thinking, right thought, is something that has to be very intentional. And it's something that we have to, one, realize, I mean, our imagination is really, it's everything.
Yeah.
You know, and out of our imagination, that's actually, I feel like, a very much more tangible way of partnering with promises, visions, maybe who your creator has called you and created you to be. And as we imagine something beyond, it actually takes us to that beyond. But when we imagine lack, when we imagine fear, when we imagine struggle was always going to be a part, again, you're putting out a vibration of that way of thinking, that way of being. So the world will always give you back what you are, right? So the power of imagination, I mean, Jesus talks so much about it. And this goes into why we create prayer, you know, and meditational time. It's to get us back into right thought and to get us back into the practice of healthy times with our meditation, through imagining a hopeful future, imagining life getting better, imagining you getting better. And again, if you're not intentional about it, then the default, if you don't design your imagination, the default of your imagination will always replay the struggles, the stress, the worries from yesterday. And so we have to decide, what am I going to do? Am I going to stay in default with my imagination, or am I going to continue to use that to help me design my way of thinking, my way of being?
Yeah, that's good. So like we use the reference of looking at your life like the cards you were dealt.
Mm-hmm.
But another visualization we could use is your life it consists of puzzle pieces, and the ultimate goal is to make the puzzle complete. So like, what advice would you give to someone who sees their puzzle pieces but doesn't know how to begin aligning them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think a lot of it would just I mean, it's going to be when we talk about being one with yourself, when we talk about how it's hard to kind of set aside that time. I mean, I think the only way to really get into that clarity of how do these pieces fit is to, one, know that there has to be something within you that goes beyond just your own belief and understanding. Because like if I have a puzzle piece and I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but I just have these pieces, if I know it's still going to create something beautiful, I'm not so obsessed with where do these go. I'm more obsessed with knowing I have all these pieces. Right. And I think once you know what pieces you have, life, God, the divine will start to align those puzzle pieces. It's not our job to figure out the how, right? It's our job to figure out the why.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. So that was part 2 of our topic of the clues are in your story. If you're unfamiliar with our podcast, we released part 1 on Monday. This was part 2, and then part 3 comes out on Friday, or you could just wait for the full conversation on Saturday. So follow along or just wait for the full episode.